Talk about this for a while, but never felt like it was the right time. But I, a while back, had a session with Kat, and learned a lot about myself, my connection with her, the planet, just my existence, things like that. So I'll kind of go over some of what we experienced during our 2-hour session. I would highly recommend her for the sheer fact that I thought I was never going to be able to connect in the ways that certain people could. And to an extent, that's kind of true. But by working with her, my soul knew what it was doing. It needed us to connect for me to grow. So my first hour with Kat was a lot different than I would assume most of her sessions are. But I can't really say for sure. I can just speak for myself. And we did the cleansing, we did clearing of my chakras, we did all of her normal healings and things that she has access to from herself and her kids, anything that she felt would help. Then we went to try and go into my library, and I got a feeling that I felt multiple times. So to me it wasn't shocking, but she said immediately, I feel like I'm going to throw up, we need to go back. Just in traveling to my library, we got this insane sick feeling. And I'd been trying to do past life regressions on my own for a while, and this was how I always... We go back and we clear all soul contracts, curses from my pathways to my library to allow me to travel without getting sick. Every time I do anything, I'm always concerned that I'm doing things wrong, because I can never see or visualize things the way that I feel like I'm supposed to. So I've been working really hard on trying to remove expectation and just kind of flow with things. But once we got into the library, I feel deeply. I know what I'm feeling. I know what I'm experiencing. It's as if I'm living things in that moment. So cold and dirt, I can feel. I don't know why I keep explaining that, but so we get to my library and it's kind of nothing. I don't really understand. So we go into my library and it's just kind of like a bright white light, and I don't really know how to explain it. Even still, kind of confuses me. But she got an overwhelming sense of emotion, and I had been feeling very deeply connected to Kat since I saw her on TikTok. I tried to book with her earlier, but she was fully booked out, and I was like, I don't want to wait that long. So I booked with other healers, never getting all that I needed from it. A lot of it I now know because I needed to heal these pathways, and no one else was seeing or experiencing it, and I couldn't describe it. But the way Kat does her healing or her sessions is she energetically merges with you. So she was feeling what I was feeling, which kind of, and then because of all of that, because of receiving this validation, I was able to trust myself a lot more, and trust that what I was thinking and seeing was not just myself, it was from spirit and was past experiences I've had. And so we got to a point where she became overwhelmed with emotions, and I still was kind of not fully sure why, but I just kept getting this thought and feeling like we're the same. And so she asked, I think we have the same library. Can you ask Spirit if we have the same library? And I already knew who her oversoul was, and felt deeply connected to all of that. And so I got a yes, and So that means once I got that yes, I knew who my oversoul was, that everything I had been thinking up until this point was all real, and I wasn't just making things up. So my oversoul is Michael, Archangel Michael. And before all of this, I had known that a spirit guide of mine was Artemis. And the more I dug into that, I realized that, I feel funny saying this, but that was a past life of mine, as Artemis, which connected to my twin flame, and all of this, like everything just started to fall into place from this one piece. All the doors were unlocked. So I'd been struggling a lot with this, the sense that I'm divine, and kind of experiencing this with Kat was completely different. We connect very deeply. There's a lot of similarities throughout our lives. We have a lot of number sequences that kind of are similar. We're both born in April, and it's just, there was a lot that kind of fell into place for me. And so it was emotional for me as well. But I just didn't get the big wave like she did as quickly as she did, because I think I had felt a connection with her from her TikToks. So I had already kind of experienced some of what she felt all at once. So we ended up going to the 24th dimension, merging our souls, which was a beautiful process. I was not fully sure what we were doing, and a lot was happening because I know she doesn't want to take more time than she needs, but I was completely open to a 2-hour session because I kind of felt like I needed it to be 2 hours. And so we get all of that done, and then we jump into our first past life. My first past life. And immediately I feel I'm in the woods. And this, I won't go into every single one just because there was I think we went through 3 major ones during my 2-hour session. And I think the only reason we didn't get to more was because I had a big thing that I had to deal with first. So we're in the woods, and I can feel like this anxious feeling in me. And so she's asking me questions, guiding me through it. And I know that I am hiding from a church that was attempting to sacrifice a child. I'd taken the child and ran into the woods and was putting it in a stream. Apparently, after working with her more, that's something we commonly did throughout our lives, was put babies in streams, like Moses' mom, which was also a past life of hers, possibly mine as well. And so I then felt wings. I felt gigantic. I felt like I was an angel, and I felt masculine. And it was that we came too late. So in this life, we were calling on Michael to come and help us save this baby, right? And I called too late. And that's what caused the issue. And I ended up losing my life, and the baby ended up being found as well. So we changed it. And it was really cool to have this kind of to feel the pain that I did in that life for that baby and for myself, and to be able to shift it and to change it. And instead of putting the baby in the water, I put the baby in a tree, and a group of teenagers were able to find the baby and save the baby. My life wasn't as much of the So this will be the last one I'll discuss, because I think that this one was really powerful for me, because it's it shows how different our journeys have been. I'm incredibly feminine and have been in almost everything I've done. I have a masculine side, but I really avoid it. I kind of have disowned that part of myself, and I'm really doing a lot to heal and to reconnect with that. But this past life I was a child, and I was alone in the woods, and we were trying to figure out why, as a child, I was alone in the woods. Well, as we dug deeper in, we realized I started a fire and ended up killing my parents. But the fire was started with my hands. My anger caused me to shoot fire and lightning from my hands, which is also something that Michael has dealt with almost all of his lives.
Okay, yesterday I talked a little bit about my past life session with Kat. I kind of really sped through things, so I wanted to go things a little more slowly. And we're gonna start with the entirety of my twin flame dynamic, because that touched so many different past lives, because we jumped around so much. Yeah. So as I said, when Kat tapped into me, she felt someone stabbing me in the back. She asked me who it was, and I said that it was my friend Tara. And she lives right down the street from me. She is friends with both me and my twin flame, and we both talk to her, but we don't talk to each other. So we really had to go back and heal whatever was going on. So that's how we found the checkpoint. So in that checkpoint life, we discovered that I was a live-in maid, and she suspected that me and him were messing around, and so she kept pushing us together in her attempt to catch us. So she eventually caught us. She got really angry at me. She hit me. She yelled at me. She fired me, kicked me out. We weren't allowed to change any of that, but we were allowed to heal it. So we go through and we remove the darkness and all the stuff that we do. And that changed it to where I still got fired, but she wasn't as angry. So that just kind of led to me leaving. There were some issues within the town, so I eventually moved away to a different town. But that wasn't the end of it. So there was still an issue, because despite him being my twin flame, we weren't together. And she was still present in that life. So we went back to my life in Pompeii, where I was married to her. I was a man in that life. And my twin flame was also a man that I was seeing. So we looked at things that were going on. She had basically cursed him. She was really angry with him because there were people that were they were trying to push the whole monotheistic Christian morals, and she was buying into that. And so it made her really angry towards us, even though it was acceptable in that society. So we removed all the curses and everything, and things were calmer. We had this point where the three of us got along well. We all worked together. I had 2 children in that life. One of them was Kat's daughter, Cade. And so we had just a better dynamic where all of us, we worked well together. We got along. It was basically a polyamorous relationship where everything just worked out and everyone was okay with it. So then we jump back to the checkpoint life. We can't find her anywhere. She's no longer in that life. So me and him ended up having a courtship in that life with that change. But we still couldn't be together because there was an issue with the age difference in that life. So we had to figure out what the cause of that was. And so we couldn't figure out, we were having issues pinpointing the life that was the cause of the problem because we had to reword things. And finally figured out it had to do with distance. And it had to do with the life where he was in the Navy. He had traveled to South America, and in that life, he had met someone else, fell in love with her, wanted to stay with her. The Navy forced him to come home, but they never made it because of a shipwreck. So we weren't allowed to change that, but we were allowed to heal things. So we went through and healed different things, including like clearing the darkness from the ship. Eventually, in that life, he ended up back home with me, and everything was fine. So, of course, we had to jump back to that checkpoint life again to see what changes had happened. When we went back to the checkpoint life, the age difference that was between me and him in that life was no longer an issue. It was an issue originally because I was older than him, which is funny because in this life I am also older than him by a considerable amount. Still legal though. Gonna throw that out there. I'm gonna make sure that's there. So then we start looking at other things, and we end up going into the life where I lived in a cottage, which ties to some other issues that me and him have in this life, the big thing being communication. But we healed that in the cottage life, which I'll talk about that in the next series. There was a language barrier, so we fixed that and cleared that so that we could have better communication. So we did past life stuff with me and my twin flame, and then we had to jump to this life because there are issues in this one. Communication being one of those things, which we went back and then we came back to this one, and there were still issues. First, on his part, we needed to go through and remove a lot of the darkness around his childhood, which I'm not going to get into too much detail on that because I know way more about that than needs to be shared. But there was a lot of stuff that dealt with confidence and self-worth. So we healed that, and then we talked about the fact that there's things I need to work on with myself, which I'm going to work on just of letting go. But we had to create a balance, and that was weird. So in order to create that balance between us, we had to pull his energy to where it was in front of me. And I questioned whether or not we were able to do that because I wasn't getting consent. But Kat reminded me that we are part of the same soul. That's also my energy. So we got him in front of me and we looked at the tube between me and him. I had flatlined things between me and him just because they weren't working out, actually, like a couple weeks ago. So we had this tube running through our heart chakra. She had me push a bunch of unconditional love towards him, like all of it until it was full, and then pull it all back towards me, and then push it through until it was balanced out. And so now that's after we created that balance, we sent his energy back, and I made a comment to Kat. I was like, that's going to be interesting because he's probably at work. And it's one of those deals I'm really interested to know, like, if he noticed and felt anything, like, if it even registered in his mind what happened to him in that moment. Because, yeah, it was a Saturday. I guarantee he was probably at work. So then we were able to move on to the next attempt of trying just to see the life that had the most information for me to learn, or that I needed to see. So yeah, that was all for my twin flame. Now it's just me working on focusing on me.
Okay, so in the past, I've kind of made videos about my session with Kat, but now I really want to go in depth with it. My session experience with Kat was the most amazing experience ever. She was so on spot about the first time when we called. Before I even answered the phone, she was like, "Why did it take you so long? Why are you so nervous?" because I didn't have belief in myself when we did the calls. She helped me calm down. She astrally came to my room, felt everything out, helped me confirm that I turned my brother into my familiar, so he's connected to me. That's a long story. She's amazing. She helped me connect to my altar, helped me understand I make portals, I make exit and enter portals to help. I trap my higher self in there as well. So she helped me open portals to send them away and to let them come in and out. She helped me send back soul fragments. I'll be making a part 2, but Kat is this fucking story. Part 2 on my session experience with Kat. She's amazing. She helped me send back soul fragments, helped me clear my space in my bedroom because she doesn't go without other people's permission to clear other people's space, and I still live with my parents, so she only cleansed my space. She had trouble entering my home at first because my dad and her energies don't mix well because of a past life thing, but that's not my story to tell. And so I had to put a barrier on to kind of block my dad's energy from interfering with cats because it was kind of attacking Kat, keeping her from really connecting. And so I put that barrier up. The connection with mine and Kat was then amazing. Then we got into the past life. She helped me see my past life as Zeus, helped me experience that, helped me set free souls that I've trapped when I was Zeus. She helped me see that I was in Pompeii. I was one of the reasons why Pompeii exploded. Part 3 of my experience in session with Kat. So she helped me see my life where I was one of the reasons why Pompeii exploded. Then my spirit guide that was a goddess came down to earth and kind of earthbended a hole in the ground and then used herself as a shield to keep the lava from coming in, and she used herself as a protection, so I was alone in the cave. And then after I don't know how long, I woke up and then she opened the tunnel up and then I was at the beach, and the only living thing that I could see was a bunch of animals on the sand and in the water that was left. And there was a boat, so then I lived the rest of my life on a boat, understanding the spiritual world, understanding spirituality, understanding why I did that, what abilities I have, what caused me to do that, what I needed to heal, and she helped me send back soul fragments. Perfect. So, part 4, my experience in session with Kat. So, she also helped me see the cosmic tie that was bounding me and my twin flame. It's why mine and my twin flame's relationship was very toxic. It didn't really work. We loved each other so much, we didn't want to be apart. But we had to be because there was a cosmic tie that we needed to heal. And she helped me view the cosmic tie. She helped me heal it. And then that also helped me see the life as Zeus, because that life ties with it, because my twin flame ship with that twin flame was the life I had with Zeus. And the reason why we had the twin flame ship is because we made a black magic blood curse on ourselves to tie ourselves together, because we felt like we didn't deserve all the riches, all the happiness, all the great powers that we had, so we made it so we had to prove to ourselves we deserve it. Part 5 with my session with Kat. And so with my twin flame, we made it so we felt like we didn't deserve it, so we put this blood curse onto ourselves too when we had our lives, that we would find love each other, but we had to prove to ourselves that we deserve our riches and happiness. So we would have a shitty life at first and have a shitty time when we connected, and everything would be amazing when we connected, but the connection would be toxic. So we would have to prove when we were ready to heal the life and prove to ourselves we were ready for our gifts, for our understanding of the divine, and for our riches. And so we made this so we can have more proof and more understanding of, hey, yes, we do deserve this. And Kat helped me heal it, helped me save it. She also helped me break the connection with my twin flame, kind of, so that I wasn't still drawn to it and I wasn't blocked by it. She helped me connect to multiple.
Just shampooed, don't mind my hair. So yesterday I had a session with Kat. It was awesome. I've never had any past life session done before. I've accessed my Akashic library by myself and calibrated that, but that's the extent that I did by myself. So she started off by just feeling everything out, and she had pointed out, she's like, you have this like constant headache. What's that about? I don't know. As far as I know, I don't have a headache. She's like, yeah, I feel pressure like at the very, very, like, top of your forehead. So I go, hold on, just give me a second. And then I ask her to read it again. She's like, what did you do? I had this sitting on my forehead exactly where she had described. Wasn't there anymore after I removed the crystal. So then from there, I didn't tell her this, but I had calibrated my library, but I hadn't seen it for the first time since I had calibrated it. So we checked out my library, and she was kind of like pleasantly surprised that there were like plants in mine because I had calibrated it already. I won't go into too much detail in describing it, but it honestly to me was like a really open greenhouse with giant wooden bookcases. It was kind of cool. Like, vines everywhere. Like, it was really freaking cool. So, she has me ask which life we want to heal the most trauma from. The book lights up. I grab it. She has you open it up, step into it. So, she asked if I'm inside or outside, and I was inside, I felt. And then she asked me if I'm male or female, and we're both kind of like, I'm like, I'm seeing a male, but I feel very feminine. So we start feeling out if there's people around, and like, I'm alone, like I feel very alone, but I'm like, wait, I'm in an apartment building that's above, like, I'm gonna say probably like a pub or something like that, maybe even a brothel. I was feeling definitely felt either old English. I had one of those puffy shirts on with the cinched sleeve. She was picking up piratey because I also had like a vest on, but I think it was more English. But like, I think that's the same time period anyway. So she's like, where's the trauma? At first I'm like, I don't know. And so like she asks again, and then I just start crying harder than I ever have in front of someone I've never met before. I'm more of a hold it in type of person, but that wasn't an option. So I'm like, I just feel so alone. Like, I'm so alone. I think I lost someone. So she asked if, like a child, and I'm like, no, this is definitely like I lost a love. And then as soon as I said that, it clicked. I'm like, oh, I'm gay. And someone found out that my lover was gay and murdered him. So now I'm a recluse all by myself because I'm alone. I'm scared. In a time period where this was not okay to be gay. However, if you've seen black sails, you know it's entirely common. So we figured out that I died not too long after he did due to getting sick, and I just had no will to get better, so I died. So we removed any kind of contracts, cords, any kind of thing keeping us together, cleared all the darkness out of that, healed all of that, cool stuff. And we healed the unknowing, dreadful feeling that I have brought into this life. Oh, and dead gay boyfriend's my curse. So yeah, I guess the reason why I cried so hard was because the guy that died is the guy I'm with now. Since having that session, I have realized that things have happened that definitely correlate with that unknowing, uncertain feeling. The first time I actually realized that I loved my boyfriend, we just started like hanging out frequently, and this thought just popped into my head, and I was like, how would you feel if he just died? I justify this because he does have a very dangerous job, one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. But that was just my past life popping up, reminding me, oh, he died, and you were devastated. And I started bawling my eyes out. I thought, I barely know this guy, and I'm crying my eyes out. So then we go back to my library, and we go into the next life that needs the most amount of healing. And I'm like, I'm in a cave. It's really dark, and I'm like, it feels tunnely. Like, I'm looking left, I'm looking right, and it just kind of goes. And then Kat's like, well, are you alone? So I look around and I'm like, no, there's like a group of young kids like huddled on the floor behind me, and I'm standing up kind of looking to my left and then looking back down at them. So she's like, is this recent? So I try to focus in on what like everyone's wearing, and I'm like, yeah, like they're huddled in blankets, but this looks like it's now. So that's when she says, this is recent. I think I'm in this life with you. These are the kids in the tunnels. And then my mind just explodes because I'm like, oh yeah, holy crap, yeah. So then Kat says, I'm in this life with you. I'm your little brother. I'm the boy sitting in that group behind. So she goes in to that vessel of hers so she can help me out a little bit. So we open a portal to one of the safe houses, asked a bunch of questions, and then figured out that we need to open individual portals for each of these kids and send them back to where they're supposed to be, their families, or wherever they're supposed to be. And I noticed only 3 popped up, and there was a group of 4 or 5 kids, not including myself. So I assumed that some of them were siblings, other than Kat and myself. But we were having difficulties finishing up and couldn't exactly figure out what the issue was. And I kind of figured out that my vessel has to go back and keep helping, but she was scared. So I left one of my soul fragments with her, and hopefully she's out doing her thing. So we went and we tried to view another life and heal some trauma, and I felt I had like dirt underneath my feet. And I felt like there was a piece of hay on the ground, and as soon as like the word hay popped into my head, Kat was actually, she said, oh, are you in a barn? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, I feel like there are walls around me, but there's a huge opening, like a huge like barn door, huge opening. I'm like, yeah, there's like animals around, like livestock. And she's like, is this yours? I'm like, yeah, I think I live here. Like these are my animals. It's my property. And she's like, where's any trauma? I'm like, I don't feel any trauma. Like I feel really content. Like I think I might live here by myself, or I'm very alone. But like I'm getting like really good vibes, like real good. And she's like, yeah, I feel that too. So she asked Spirit, did we heal all the trauma? We both got like a eh. She asked, did we heal all the trauma that we can at this time? So we tried filling out some like spiritual gifts from that point, since there was really nothing else we could do trauma-wise. And she's like, I'm like, I feel connected to these animals. And she started picking up on maybe I could like speak with the animals. I wasn't exactly getting that. I do have a connection to animals in this life, definitely. However, I was hyper-focused on the tree line in the background, which lit up and was like glowing. Like the most like beautiful, bright canopy trees ever, just as far as my eye could see in the horizon, surrounding my property. So we agreed that like this is magical, don't know where the magic is coming from, what does this mean, trying to figure it out. And the thing that kept popping up into my head is actually my boyfriend's father's family farm that he grew up on. His father is a mystic and actually had a bunch of like experiences with his human vessel. Crazy. So on this farm where my boyfriend's dad grew up, there was this woman who lived in the woods who my boyfriend's dad would refer to as Witchy Willie when he was a kid. She just kept popping up into my head. One of his stories was he went to go check up on her after he got done college, and when he went back, her entire place was burnt down. So he went to go ask a neighbor, and the neighbor was like, yeah, the neighbors burned her house down. We didn't want her here anymore. And so for the rest of his life, he was like, I don't know what happened to her. Like, I don't know. She was a trapped soul. So is she did she like move on? Is she in a worse place? Like, what happened to her? And then that's when Kat stopped me. She's like, no, this is what you're here for. This is what you're supposed to do. So I kind of just like did something I didn't realize I could do, and I just kind of teleported and zoomed over to where her house was. I knocked on her door, and the door opened, but there was no one standing in the doorway. It was just like, so I can't see anything inside the doorway, but I know she's like standing there kind of checking me out somehow. I'm getting this really like reluctant vibe. So Kat has me tell her, I'm not there to harm you. I'm not scared. No reason to, worry. I'm not making you leave or anything. And I asked if she was open to help, and I was still getting this like, But then I saw her head like poke out from around the door and like look me up and down. And I was like, Kat actually suggested if it make you more comfortable, I can go back to where I was and do this from a distance. And you don't have to go on. We'll just open this portal for you, and you just have the choice. You don't have to go. So I was like, getting a better feeling, like, okay, maybe. So I left, did what I had to do to help her out, and then we got back, and Kat's like, there's someone here with you. Like, there's someone standing, like, behind you. And I'm like, here in present. So she says there's someone standing behind me, and I'm like, I don't know. And so she asks Spirit. She's like, Spirit, is this the little girl? No. And then she's like, is it the witch? No. So we're like, who followed me back? And then it clicked. My boyfriend's dad. I'm like, it's gotta be him. I was on the family property. We just helped out someone that he was curious about for literally his entire life. And when he was alive, I had no contact with him about any of this spiritual kind of stuff. I knew he was into it, but he had no idea I was. And then we both started getting this vibe like, what is going on here? What? How? Where is this coming from? Excuse me? What? You know, it's just this vibe of, all right then. Kat asked if he's one of my spirit guides, and I'm pretty sure he is. So we go back into the library, and we picked the last book, which ended up being bright yellow. So I step in the book, and this time she's like, whoa, you went up this time. You didn't go down. So she asked me what I feel, and all I could feel was I just felt myself like going like this with my arms, like I was swimming in mist of some sort. It was just like all around me, like I was just kind of like waving it away from my face. And that's all I could see. I couldn't really see anything at all. And I had nothing to like base anything off of. And she's like, are you big? Are you small? I couldn't think of how to judge my size. So I'm like, maybe I can jump and figure out how big I am. And once I jumped, I was like, oh, that was a big fall. So I'm big. I'm real big. And so she's like, oh, are you a dragon? And that gave me the idea to like reach around and start like feeling what I feel. And then I was like, well, no, I have arms like and legs like a human. But then I like reached back and I felt these like wings that they were hard. They were wings, but they were hard. And then I realized I was just covered in all of this like shiny, I want to say scaly, but armory. So she's like, what color are you? Are you gold, silver? And I'm like, it's silver, but it's more of like a tinny kind of silver, like a deep, almost like a chrome, not like a wedding ring kind of silver. And everything's just like hard. And she's like, do you have a sword? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, is it like a green or a blue? I'm like, it's blue. It's like a bright blue. And she's like, you're a fragment of Saint Michael. And I believe she is too. I hope I'm using the right deity. I am not familiar with any of them at all. I know nothing. So she told me that like this makes total sense. That everything that we've been doing, you've really been like finding like lost souls and helping lost like people, which is what he does. So then from there we tried figuring out where I was, and we figured out that the place I was in was the eye of the storm of the hurricane that's going on off the coast of Florida right now. And I know nothing about these, but I'm like, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound like something a deity would do, because it causes damage and hurt. So we're confused about why I'm in the eye of the storm right now, because it kind of doesn't make sense. So she asked Spirit, like, is St. Michael being like coveted? Gonna be honest, I don't really know what she meant by that. I'm gonna assume like controlled somehow. So since I was in that vessel, I guess we were able to like clear that out and make it so that the storm naturally takes its course instead of being controlled. But then she's like, well, now I wonder who's in the other one. So I don't know if I'm saying too much now, but I have a feeling like this is another like puzzle going on, I guess. So we did any kind of like healing light body, everything that we could do, we tried to do. So when we were done, we went back into my library. She was like, no, just keep up, come here every once in a while, water your plants. And that was about it. It was great. Highly suggest.
Hello, my dearies. I'm finally gonna do the story time of the past life session I had with Cat and Boots 138. I had this session back with her in September, and I had started my spiritual business a few months prior to that. I found her on TikTok, and I really vibed with her videos. She was kind of one of the first creators on here that made me want to be on this app. So when I finally got a session with her in September, I was ecstatic. And the first book that we asked to see was where my spiritual gifts came from. Now, I'm already an Akashic Records reader, so she was taking me into my Akashic Records to heal some of those lives. So it was very easy for me to pop in. And the way that my energy works is I kind of get whoosh, that's how it feels, to where I'm supposed to be. So we get in there, and one of the first things I notice is that I'm not on Earth, but I am at home, wherever this is.
And I'm kind of like looking around, and I'm stuck in a cage, and I felt like I was underwater in some kind of water being. I knew I was very powerful and important. However, I was being used as a weapon of war because of my magical powers. So I'm trying to figure out where I am, and I'm like, there's a man that put me in here, and it was my dad in that life. And I keep hearing Sirius, but I don't think that's his name. Kat goes, are you on Sirius, the planet, or the constellation? We both immediately got a confirmation. Yes, I'm clairsentient, so the way I feel or the way I receive my psychic information is through feeling it and just knowing it through claircognizant. So I'm not seeing this stuff, I'm just feeling it all around me, and I'm starting to get a little overwhelmed because I know that I didn't want to do what I did. So Kat asks me to go to the part that needs to be healed, and what happened was I essentially, like, it felt like I split the planet with the power that came out of my hands by the hand of my father. So I was doing a lot to kind of like please him, even though it was destroying our people and our land. After we have the hand moment and what feels like splitting of the planet, Kat realized it kind of resonated with some lives that she's experienced and that she's cleared and dealt with. So she asked, are you a part of my oversoul? And we both get a confirmation of yes. And that basically just means that our souls are connected and we're aligned on this earth to do similar work. And she goes, you can do what I do, can't you? And I was like, I think that I can. I'm already like doing past life work, but this just gives me like a whole different tool to use to do it. So that was like really cool and totally made sense why when I found her, when I first got on TikTok, I totally vibed and connected with her. So we start to send back all the soul fragments, clear contracts, all that jazz to undo this terrible thing that I've done. So we said all the amazing, wonderful phrases to heal the trauma and send back soul fragments. And I go back in there and it feels lighter. Like I didn't do something as bad. I didn't do the splitting of the planet anymore, but I was still stuck kind of under my dad's, I want to like under his foot. That's how, I don't know why that's what I wanted to say. So he kind of wouldn't budge with what he wanted from me, but I didn't cave under the pressure after we sent back the soul fragments. So it was really amazing to feel the weight lifted off of my like literal shoulders from doing that, because it's rippling on so many beings from the Sirius constellation. After I hopped out of my Sirius life, I ended up in the Galactic Federation's ship, which is like a whole other thing. And my guides were being like really cryptic at that point, because sometimes they like to be that way, and that's just how it is. But I'm so grateful that I got to have a session with Kat and learn that I can do this stuff too, and she really helped me step into my power even more. I've had many different types of spiritual sessions before, and Kat's gave me a whole different like power in myself that other sessions haven't given me, because she gave me the tools to see it and do it myself if I need to. So thank you, Kat. I love you. And I always love watching your story times. And if you're not following her, go follow her. She taught me a good amount of the past life stuff just from her page and her session, one session.
Okay, so I've mentioned a couple times now that I had a life that we're just going to refer to as my cottagecore lesbian life. Yeah, it's, I lived in the idyllic cottage out in the woods with a beautiful garden. Everything about it was gorgeous. Like, honestly, I could probably paint a picture of it, but yeah, I could. I'm probably not going to. That would take a lot of time. That's besides the point. But let's talk about that life next. So that life, I had self-isolated myself from everyone around me in the community. And a lot of it had to do because I had abilities. Felt like I would be outcast because of one other person that had judged me. And they had judged me because they had to suppress their own abilities. So the person that had judged me also had abilities, but her family made her suppress them. And so because she couldn't be herself, she didn't want me to be myself either. She wanted me to think that I was a freak, essentially. So we healed darkness around that. And then we saw that things had changed. Like, I still lived out in my cottage. I lived out in my cottage this entire time. But I had a line of people at the door. They were wanting me to help them with different things. People within the community. They were really accepting of the things that I could do. And they sought me out for help. And I invited her to embrace her gifts, and she came and lived with me in the cottage, which has led to the cottagecore lesbian jokes about this. We spent quite a bit of time talking about the cottage because I would love to have that cottage in this life, honestly. So we talked about how I should manifest it, and I told Kat I want that cottage, but I want it in Sweden because everything in my life goes back to Sweden. It is what it is. So everything's working out. We're doing that. We have a gardener. Our gardener happens to be my twin flame because as much as I love plants and I cannot keep plants alive. But that's where we had the communication barrier that we had to fix. So in order to fix it in that life, we had to come to an understanding because I spoke French and he spoke English. So it got to where we had to point at things and both of us say our own word and kind of help each other understand. So we cleared up all the communication stuff in that one because we were helping each other speak to each, learn the other language, because I spoke French. I don't know what she spoke. I didn't ask. I'm assuming French since I had no problem communicating with her. He spoke English, so I really don't know where we were. That's interesting. I may have to jump back because now I'm curious what language she spoke, just because I didn't have trouble communicating with her. They didn't have trouble communicating with each other. So maybe she spoke both French and English. I don't know. But yeah, by the end of that life, everything that we saw, I went through the entire LGBT spectrum of sexuality, which is fine because I'm bi.